AM 590, KXSP Omaha's ESPN Radio. It's time for the Metro's only racing talk show. The Front Stretch, presented by Joe's Karting in Council Bluffs. Now, here's Dan Taylor and Buddy Ray.
Good morning, race fans, and welcome to the Front Stretch, presented by Joe's Karting at Council Bluffs, online at joeskarting.com. That's karting with a K, the newly revamped joeskarting.com. Beautiful website. Head over to joeskarting.com, karting with a K, to check out the brand new website. Also, don't forget, if you happen to miss any of the Front Stretches through 2015 through 2014, the Legends of the Dirt Series, we've got shows all the way back to 2012 on there. You can go back and listen to our first Legends of the Dirt Series. We talked to Scott Bloomquist, Sammy Swindell, some amazing interviews. Go to the Joe's Karting YouTube page, youtube.com, and just search Front Stretch. You can check out all our videos on there. And joined in the studio by a cohort of talent, my two best historians when it comes to racing, and today's going to be a lot of sprint car as far as the show's concerned. Stan Cisar from Eagle Raceway, Nebraska 360s, and maybe more. We'll see. Who knows? Be tuned in to find out what's going on there. Joins us, Stan. How you doing, sir?
Pretty good. How you doing?
I think I'm thawing out from Wednesday and Thursday's chill. Boy, I tell you, I just left my beer outside. I didn't bother putting it in the refrigerator because it was colder sitting outside.
You know, we've been at races a couple times. It was almost this cold.
Yeah. What was that? I think it was a spring meltdown. There was no melt whatsoever.
Hey, you were looking for a place to hide, little sanctuary up in the announcing booth.
I couldn't get enough hot chocolate that night. Turn number 2, we're going to talk with Bill Wright of the National Sprint League, and Bill's going to talk to us about getting that league started and then drivers that are going to be involved with it. And then turns 3 and 4, we'll talk to CJ Rayburn for the Legends of the Dirt Series, and Lee Ackerman joining us in studio to make sure we stay on track. And Lee, Stan, where do you want to start? You want to start with Eagle? You want to start with 360s? You want to start 410s?
Well, let's start with sprint cars in general. If you're a sprint car fan, it's going to be a great season in 2015 because there is a lot of racing going on for sprint cars of one sort or another.
Let me interrupt you and let me stop you there, because you started there, and I want to say, what is the chances there's too much? Because we've had times where there's been too many dirt tracks in the area and they can't get enough drivers. So is there going to be too much dirt race, too much sprint car racing to where the series are going to suffocate themselves?
I really don't think so, because it's pretty spread out. And of course, at Eagle, we have the Race Saver 305s weekly, and they have their own following and their own fans and people that come there every Saturday night and they love sprint car racing. There's going to be some specials, and the specials are different types of sprint cars, different engines, different series, different, it's going to be pretty much a potpourri of sprint car racing. And if you don't like something that comes into our area with no fenders this year, something's wrong.
Well, I'm going to take Stu Snyder, for example, because Stu's been a 360 racer for a long time, and going to the Nebraska Cup and doing a little bit of racing in 2014, I think Stu may be leaning towards doing a more permanent 305 Race Saver engine and package, and now he's got the option to go grab a 410 engine, and if he has a Race Saver 305, a 360, and a 410, granted, that's a lot of money sitting in your hauler, but if you've got it, you've got a lot of options for where you can go racing.
Exactly. I've heard Stu's putting a 410 deal together to do that.
Oh, is he?
And at least the close races, and we'll get into that, probably a little bit later on when we're talking to Bill W. Some of the local guys, I believe they'll be raising their game a little bit and joining up with the 410 guys whenever they come in the area. The upper end 360 teams, looking at the financial standpoint of the deal, Dennis and Randy with the Nebraska 360 series have done a great job of keeping the 360 series alive, and the guys that still want to run the 360 engines, they've restructured their purse a little bit. They got some great incentives for guys to come run their series. Our thing has grown by leaps and bounds, as far as weekly series go with the 305s. Also new for 2015, the Sprint Series of Nebraska for IMCA Race Saver Sprints, presented by Precise Racing Products. And that's going to be, something that's going to be a 9-race series, and it's basically for the cars, the Race Saver 305 cars that are racing weekly at Eagle Raceway. None of the races will be on Saturday nights. So, and it's going to be a completely separate point series. So guys running for IMCA national points will have an extra chance to pick up national points in this area. And the second thing it's going to do is it's going to allow tracks that maybe can't afford or don't want to run sprints as a weekly class. It's going to let those guys pick up the sprints for 2 or 3 times a year for specials that come into their area. Tracks like US 30 Speedway, Butler County's even having the 305s in with the 360s one night. I-80 Speedway is going to have the 305s preliminary night to the Fall Brawl in 2000, and it's going to be sanctioned this year for points. So you're going to see guys, the upper end guys that are chasing points are going to be there, and it's going to be a great year. And I think it's something that will build also. Of course, the weekly show every week down at Eagle Raceway, that's going to be going on. 410 non-winged cars are coming in, the annual Rumble in the Bull Ring. That'll be Friday, April the 24th. We've got Tony Bruce bringing in the Eagle Nationals. That's going to be an ASCS Lucas Oil National Tour event, as it has been in the past. And then Labor Day weekend, third annual IMCA Race Saver Super National Weekend, presented by Precise Racing Products once again. And that's going to be 3 nights. Last year we started 3 wide. We had 75 cars from 12 states. And with the way Race Saver has been growing in 2015, more tracks coming on board. Huset's up in South Dakota, Hartford Speedway, tracks over in Indiana, more tracks in Texas, possibly in Minnesota. There's going to be more Race Saver cars around in closer proximity to our area. That could, easily we're looking for 100 cars this year in 2015. That's going to be a great event. And then this year, the annual Nebraska Cup, which has been, on the schedule for years and years and years, going back to a 410 race this year. That's going to be within a National Sprint League. We're going to kick off the National Sprint League Tour May 8th, first of 2 nights of racing going on, one at Eagle, one at Knoxville. We'll talk about that a little bit later on.
With Bill Wright of the National Sprint League. He'll be joining us in turn 2.
We're going to kick the season off at I-80 Speedway, the annual Spring Meltdown, and that's always been an ASCS Midwest Regional race. This year it's going to be a Nebraska 360 race. Okay. 2 big nights of racing, great purse up for grabs, and that race always draws a lot of cars because everybody's been sitting around all winter long and they can't wait to get to that first race. Got great late models going on with it. A-mods are going to be in the house that night, so there's going to be 2 big nights of racing. The first weekend, Friday and Saturday, April 3rd and 4th, that's at I-80 Speedway. Nebraska 360 Series, it moves to Butler County for the first of 4 races. Park Jefferson's on the Speedway for a couple races, Junction Motor Speedway. And they've got 22 race nights for 2015. 3 of them are piggyback onto ASCS National Tour events. Of course, the Fall Brawl, that's coming up at I-80 Speedway. It's an ASCS National Tour race on September 18th and 19th. And then I believe the final race on the Nebraska or the National Sprint League is also going to be at I-80 Speedway, and that's coming up in October on the the 2nd and 3rd.
Okay.
So
you're going to be a busy man.
It's going to be a great year, and it's great for me. I'll spend a lot of time in the booth, I think, this year, and I'll get to watch some great sprint car racing, and that's a pretty win-win deal.
You really can't complain when you get to watch racing and call racing. And you get to be out there in the environment, and that's a beautiful thing.
It's fun, yeah. It is. It's kind of like one of those sandwiches they call it. It's a beautiful thing.
So that's the Nebraska 360 schedule. You can go to the Facebook page for more information on that. Let's talk a little bit about Eagle Raceway while we have a few minutes left in the turn.
Okay, more of the same. Same thing we've been doing all year long. We got the Icebreaker Challenge kicking things off on the 17th and 18th. Some big money up for the A-mods. Race Savers will be on the bill, once again. They're going to have the Rumble and Bull Ring. We talked about the USAC 410 non-wing sprints. Also 305 Race Savers on the bill. So an all-sprint car night. That's coming up Friday, April 24th before the season opener. The following night, Saturday, April 25th. We've got the Kenny Wallace Dirt Racing Experience will be taking place down at Eagle Raceway. That's something where a fan can come in, and you can check that out. I believe that's been on Groupon and a couple things. Getting the 2-seater car, experience the thrill of driving or riding around the high banks down there. Eagle Nationals, that's been another staple on our schedule every year. Tony Bruce comes in and promotes that race. ASCS National Tour comes in the house. Freedom Fest, big fireworks display coming up Saturday, 4th of July. Hopefully the rain doesn't knock this one out. The Eagle Pro Pulling Nationals, big tractor pull taking place, and they had a great field of tractors on hand. And about 6 o'clock, the rains moved in last year and washed the thing out. And because of schedules and 3 or 4 different sanctioning bodies for the big tractors, they couldn't get it rescheduled. But we talked about earlier the Race Saver Sprint Super National deal presented by Precise, and that's a big 3-day race over Labor Day weekend, and then ending our season with the Nebraska Cup, and we bring the National Sprint League in, and I'm really looking forward to seeing those guys once again down at Eagle Raceway. Of course, a lot of familiar names will be there, a lot of new names that the guys probably haven't seen in this area for a while. So it's going to be a great year for me. Get a chance to get out and do some of this Sprint Series of Nebraska. Get out to some of these other tracks and give some of the fans that maybe don't get to see sprint car races on a regular basis maybe their first ever chance of seeing sprint cars.
You've got 3 schedules of racing sitting in front of you. We've gotten to 2 of them. Let's take a quick break. We'll get Bill Wright on the horn, and we'll talk to him about the National Sprint League. What do you say?
Great.
We'll be back in turn number 2 to talk to Bill Wright of the NSL. This is The Front Stretch, presented by Joe's Karting on AM 590, Omaha's ESPN Radio.
This is Andrew from Koziski Auto Parts. Koziski Auto Parts is an insurance-quality used parts supplier that can match your foreign or domestic car or truck needs. If you have a damaged or broke-down car or truck, we guarantee a clean and quality part in next-day fashion. Koziski Auto Parts, your neighborhood premium recycled parts supplier. Call any Koziski Auto Parts salesman today by dialing 402-731-4590. Or visit us at 5040 I Street in Omaha. Koziski Auto Parts. Our quality used parts will match your car or truck's needs.
Are you ready for fast-paced, adrenaline-pumping, wheel-to-wheel racing right here in the Metro? Get to Joe's Karting in Council Bluffs and see what it's like to race real go-karts. Joe's Karting knows it's no fun to race go-karts at 10 miles per hour, so they ripped the governors out, and now the only restriction is how good you are at racing. It's full-throttle, white-knuckle racing every day of the week. Head over to joeskarting.com for hours, prices, and specials, or give Buddy a call today and set up your group races at 712-256-5278.
We're working the high line into turn 2 on the front stretch, presented by Joe's Karting, online at joeskarting.com.
Welcome back to the front stretch, heading into turn number 2 and brought to you by Joe's Karting in Council Bluffs, online at joeskarting.com. Time to talk a little National Sprint League, and we're talking with the PR director for the NSL, Bill Wright. Bill, how are you doing today, sir?
Good, Dan. How are you doing?
I am doing fantastic. Stan Cisar joining me in studio, helping me out with this interview because he is the man that seems to know the most about sprint cars. So asked Stan to come and help me out today, and hope we do you justice.
We'll do it justice one way or another, I guess.
Bill, if you don't mind, start out with, how did you guys come up with the concept of starting this touring 410 series?
Well, Todd Clearing, a big James tree stand, came up with this model, and we want to grow 410 racing here in the Midwest. And he put up a very generous point fund, $350,000 for these drivers to go after. And the whole thing was we wanted to center around Knoxville Raceway and 410 sprint cars, which is the premier division in sprint cars. And we wanted to focus on that. We wanted to stay kind of in a 7-state area here and get about 30 races where guys can go out and get a really good purse. And we've got some big races thrown in there, and I think it's going to be great. A guy can run our series and also at the Knoxville Raceway, and together run for over $500,000 in cash and contingencies. And
you're absolutely right. There's not a lot of 410s running in this area besides Knoxville. Stan, is there any other tracks that run weekly 410s?
Other than Knoxville, and then there are a few tracks over in eastern Iowa, and there's a couple smaller series, kind of regional series, if you will, that run the 410 cars, but they basically draw on a lot of the cars that are at Knoxville every Saturday night. That's the mecca of Midwest 410 racing, and I think it's a win-win for everybody involved, drivers, fans, tracks, and everybody. I think it's a great deal.
Closest weekly show to Knoxville is really up in Sioux Falls for 410s on Sunday nights at Houston Speedway, and it's about 5 hours between the two. And I think this will grow the sport. We've worked with the other 410 organizations. There's a traveling series in the Wisconsin area called the IRA. There's one in Central Illinois called the Midwest Open Wheel Association. So we've kind of worked with them. We've got a couple co-sanctions with those series. We're working with the World of Outlaws too, and working together with all of them. And I think we put together a series where we're not trying to step on each other. We're trying to cooperate with each other and grow each other's series, and I think that's going to be great. And it's the most exciting form of dirt racing there is. I mean, it's got the greatest power-to-weight ratio of anything outside of top fuel dragsters, and you're racing on dirt and in ovals and sliding all over the place, and it's just exciting for the fans as well. So I think it's going to grow the sport in the Midwest here.
And I think it'll grow the division in the Midwest as well. The upper end of the 360 division, quite frankly, have probably just about priced themselves out of the 360 division. And I see a lot of the upper end 360 guys possibly making the switch or making a more permanent switch to the 410 cars.
Yeah, we're seeing that too. I work at Knoxville Raceway. I have for years and years, and we've seen that at Knoxville. Kind of seen a decline in the 360s. Guys are thinking, hey, it costs me just as much to get to the track. It costs me just as much in tires, in fuel, and those things. Really, the cost of the engines is about the same now. So the guys are saying, why don't I go to a 410 where it's $600 to start the feature, whereas in the 360 I have to finish, second or third to get that kind of money. So, you're seeing a lot of guys moving up, and this traveling series I think is going to help them as well.
Well, of course, it's a great deal for our area. We've got 4 weekends on the schedule, and we were going to kick things off, and then you got the race over to West Burlington early on in April. But, of course, my home track at Eagle Raceway, we're going to kick things off, big 2-night event in conjunction with you guys, and a little bonus money if somebody can sweep the weekend, and that'd be a great way to start the season.
Yeah, that would be a great way to start the season. Durst Motorplex is putting up that money, the $20,000 bonus to win at Eagle and Knoxville Raceway. We're working on a bonus also at the end of the year, maybe to sweep at I-80 Speedway. Our season championship is going to be there. This year it's going to be $10,000 to win on October 3rd. That weekend we'll also be at the Nebraska Cup this year on Friday, September 11th. I believe it is. Yep, at the Nebraska Cup. So that's going to be great as well. It's going to be great to see guys racing at Eagle and Knoxville. You can't get two tracks that have as much difference as maybe Eagle the banked third mile and Knoxville the big sweeping half mile. So it's going to be tough for a guy to sweep both of those, I think. Although we've got a guy in our series, Brian Brown, who's accustomed to winning in both places. He just took the Nebraska Cup there this last September, and of course he's no stranger to victory lane in Knoxville. So Brian's going to be one of our top drivers in our series. So he's maybe one of the favorites going into that deal. Yeah,
Brownie was pretty happy in victory lane down at Eagle when he finally picked up the win at Eagle Raceway, because traditionally Eagle's been kind of a tough track for him, and he's really been fast at I-80 all the time on the big tracks, and he's kind of got that big track guy misnomer placed on him. But when he took home that first Eagle trophy at the Nebraska Cup last year, he was a pretty happy dude.
Yeah, he was, and I know I talked to him, and I know he let the setup all to his crew chief. He just totally stayed out of it. He said, every time I put input in at Eagle, it doesn't go well for me. So whatever his crew chief did was great. And I know he won the night before at 34 Raceway in West Burlington in a 410. So he's getting better on the bull rings for sure.
Well, it's great. Everybody in Nebraska is looking forward to the 410s coming back on a semi-regular basis, and hopefully we're going to see more of those races in our area in upcoming years. I think it's a great thing. I think it's going to take off. Having worked with you got some great people involved. You handling the PR. Of course, you've been at Knoxville for a number of years, and everything there is to know about 410s going on in this area, to be sure. Chuck Z is a great guy to work for. I worked with him at the Midwest ASCS for the last 3 or 4 years, doing the tour announcing, and Chuck's a great guy. He's got the respect of all the drivers. I know we talked a lot in the pit area out at I-80 last year at the Fall Brawl, and everybody's looking forward to the deal. Talk about some of the drivers that have committed to run this thing. It looks like you got a pretty good schedule and pretty good group of guys committed to the deal already.
Yeah, I mean, you got a local or two there from Omaha. Dakota Hendrickson is from Omaha there. He's a great prep athlete, I know, there with football and stuff like that. And he's been a regular over at the Knoxville Raceway the last 2 years with the 410s, but he's going to run the whole series.
He's kind of been a sleeper. A lot of people in this area, because he races primarily at Knoxville, don't really know about Dakota, but he's got a great ride for 2015. That car of Harley Van Dyke's, that's a great machine, and whoever's behind the wheel, it's a very competitive car.
Yep, absolutely. And Harley's coming out all the way from California, and they're going to headquarter there in Omaha, and it's a nice central location for him.
Harley likes this area.
I know a lot of the Nebraska fans also know Brian Gossel. I mean, Brian's been racing around that area for years and years with 360s, but he's got He's got a couple 410s now that he's purchased, and he's going to run the whole deal with us. Of course, Danny Lasowski and Brian Brown. We talked about Brian. Danny, of course, has won the Nationals, won with the World of Outlaws. A guy who's won the IRA championship the last 7 years. I call him the Alaskan Cheesehead because he moved down to Wisconsin from Alaska. Billy Baylog, he's going to be running with us. Of course, 7-time Knoxville champ, 8-time Houston champ Terry McCarl is going to be on board. Wayne Johnson, who just swept the Fall Brawl last September, $50,000 bonus. I think he made like $61,000 at I-80 Speedway.
Yep.
Defending Knoxville champ Ian Madsen out of Australia is going to be racing with us. Dusty Zomer and the Buffalo Wild Wings, number 82. Austin McCarl, Terry's sons, signed in. Kaylee Garst, another one of the drivers that signed in with us. Paul Nienheiser, who's just a young 17, 18-year-old driver now out of Illinois, but he's got a lot of talent.
So that's a new one. I hadn't heard Paul came on board.
Yep, Paul Nienheiser, Brian O'Banion. I know he's originally from Norfolk, Nebraska, I believe.
Yeah.
And I think he's living up in Sioux Falls now, but he's signed on. Chris Martin, a 17-year-old driver out of Ankeny here. So we have a good mix of young and old,
I've heard there's a couple rides out there that the driver hasn't been named. There's a lot of rumors floating around, and if some of the names come to fruition that we've heard, it's going to be pretty exciting for the Midwest fans. And I think you're going to see a lot of surprises too. Guys that always seem to come up with 410s for the Nationals, that maybe don't race 410s weekly or don't on a regular basis. Guys like Billy Alley, Jack Dover. I'd really be surprised to not see those guys hitting all the races that are close, especially the ones that are in our area.
Yep, absolutely. And you got Scott Bowles, the car owner over there in the 1B. He has 410s.
Sure.
Mark Birch has been talking to us as well, and he's going to field somebody in his car. So there's going to be plenty of local talent around Nebraska, but you're also going to get a lot of guys coming in there and maybe racing Eagle for the first time and I-80 for the first time. And that's what I'm really excited about is seeing some of these guys at Eagle and
a lot of guys that haven't committed. Like I'd be real surprised not to see Justin Henderson around, pretty often, and guys like him.
Yep, absolutely. And I think Justin and his car owner Brian Sunby, I think they're going to run the whole thing. Last I heard,
cool.
And we can't put them up until their membership's in, but that's what we hear. And
word on the street.
The word on the street, I guess you could say. And what's great about some of these races is you got the locals from Knoxville that are going to be at some of them that might not necessarily follow our whole series, and locals from up in Sioux Falls.
Yeah.
And Nebraska's kind of a good meeting place for that. Or Park Jefferson's just up the road from you.
Sure.
And that's going to be an exciting race too. I think we're there in July, and we'll hit Houston 4 or 5 times during the year, 3 or 4 times, I think.
Well, talking about the races that are right in our neighborhood for the folks listening in on the show on May 8th, that's going to be at Eagle Raceway. At I-80 Speedway, it'll be July the 31st. And then also, of course, the 9/11, the Nebraska Cup's going to be a NSL race this year. That's back at Eagle Raceway. And then I think Joe's calling it the Freaky 410 finale, Fearless 410 finale at I-80 Speedway. That'll be coming up October 2nd and 3rd. And those particular 4 weekends, all the Nebraska race fans need to put on their calendar right now.
I hope it's fearless and not freaky.
There you go. I'm with you there.
We're talking with Bill Wright, PR director for the new NSL, the National Sprint League. Bill, something that every race series has to take into effect is cost. So how have you taken cost into effect when building this 410 series?
Cost for whom?
The drivers.
We've got a number of contingencies. Some of them we've announced already. Some of them that we've not announced. We're working with Hoosier Tire, and that'll probably, to be honest with you, that'll probably be the biggest deal for the drivers because tires are a big cost with these things. When you're paying $200 to $250 for a right rear tire and you go through a couple a night, we're working with them. The Minnesota Mafia has put up $200 for quick time every night. We've got some other contingency sponsors already. So we're looking at a lot of the product sponsors for the drivers, and we're looking at giving away 8 to 10 contingencies every night to our drivers. We also have tow money. The top 15 owners our points get $300 a night in tow money alone. So, that's how we're looking to get them going down the road. We're also going to have a merchandise trailer, and that trailer is going to be open to our drivers. They can sell their apparel out of our merchandise trailer. I think that's going to be a big boon for them as well. Some of them have their own merchandise trailers, and to be able to leave those at home and not spend the fuel to get them to all the races and be able to sell out of our trailer is going to be great for them. And that's what we're trying to do. We're trying to look out for the driver. We're trying to get them down the road. And in fact, when we're looking at contingency sponsors, I and some of the other employees, we're going to the drivers and saying which ones will help you the most coming out through the year. So we hear Bell Helmets, we hear KSE Racing Products, we hear Brown and Miller Racing Solutions, just the chassis manufacturers, just different people that could help them out along the way, and they're going to be able to get contingencies every night that maybe it's a gift certificate or maybe it's cash, but it's going to help get them down the road or help them when they're going to the race shop or Speedway Motors or wherever it is where they can get their equipment.
And one of the biggest things that you didn't really touch on, but I think just the schedule of the series itself, keeping it at a certain amount of races and keeping it within that 7-state area and not too many miles from their hub of Knoxville, that's going to make it great for all those guys not having to run up and down the countryside.
Yeah, and we've tried, we've got a couple races where we've got a kind of a tow. One of them's from Eagle to Cedar Lake, Wisconsin, but, we're trying to keep them close together. We've got a big fair week, and that's another area that's pretty close to you. When you talk about Denison, that's not, what is that, an hour drive away? Mm-hmm. And it is very racy. They've shortened it to a 3/8, and it's really wide, and they're getting 3 and 4 wide racing. They're on a weekly basis talking to them. And in the week of Tuesday, July 21st, we're in Britt, Iowa. Then Thursday, we're at Jackson, Minnesota. And then that Friday, the 24th, we're at Denison. And those are all fair races. I think that's going to be a great week. And like I said, we're trying to keep these races bunched in together, so we're not traveling a whole lot of miles between these races. And the fans don't have to travel that far either. They can say, I'm gonna go to these 3 different tracks in 4 nights, or 4 different tracks in 4 nights, and be able to see some great sprint car racing on some tracks that are different sizes and different configurations with a lot of good sprint car drivers. And around that time of year, you'll have guys coming in from all over the country for the Nationals, and they'll be looking to get some more races in. So you'll see a lot of racers from around the country, like Rico Abreu or Christopher Bell. Some of those guys, you'll see them in the area as well.
Great.
Bill Wright, PR Director for the National Sprint League, nationalsprintleague.com for more information. Bill, we appreciate your time, sir.
Thank you, Dan.
Have a good one.
Thank you.
You too.
Oh, that was Bill Wright of the National Sprint League. All right, we'll be back to CJ Rayburn. We'll talk to him for the Legends of the Dirt series. This is The Front Stretch, presented by Joe's Karting, online at joeskarting.com.
Max I. Walker has been providing great service to the Omaha area for nearly 100 years. With 23 convenient locations, it's easy to find a Max I. Walker near you. From dry cleaning to laundry to uniform rentals, Max I. Walker is here to make sure you look your best. Max I. Walker has been a proud supporter of local dirt track racing since 1974. From Sunset Speedway to Adams County Speedway and legends of the dirt like Dave Chase, Glenn Roby, Ron Tilley, and so many more. Give Max I. Walker a call today or head to maxiwalker.com.
Are you ready for fast-paced, adrenaline-pumping, wheel-to-wheel racing right here in the Metro? Get to Joe's Karting in Council Bluffs and see what it's like to race real go-karts. Joe's Karting knows it's no fun to race go-karts at 10 miles per hour, so they ripped the governors out, and now the only restriction is how good you are at racing. It's full-throttle, white-knuckle racing every day of the week. Head over to joeskarting.com for hours, prices, and specials, or give Buddy a call today and set up your group races at 712-256-5278.
Time to grab another tear-off and make your move. We're headed into Turn 3 on the Front Stretch, presented by Joe's Karting.
Welcome back to the Front Stretch. Heading into turn number 3, brought to you by Kaziski Auto Parts, the official sponsor of the Legends of the Dirt series. And today, Lee Ackerman and I are joined by one of the most widely recognized car builders in dirt late model racing history. It's CJ Rayburn. Hello, CJ. How are you, sir?
How you doing, CJ?
Fine. And speaking of the legends of dirt track racing and Kaziski Auto Parts, what about Bob Kaziski?
Bob was one of our legends the inaugural year we did this about 2 years ago. Bob, Joe, and Steve, I think they all made it on to one show.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, they were some legendary drivers, and those are the guys that we like to go back in the day and say, remember when.
And we got them all in the National Dirt Late Model Hall of Fame.
All in the NASCAR?
No, the Dirt Hall of Fame in Florence.
In Florence, yeah.
Is that one of the Hall of Fames you're inducted into also?
Yes.
He was in the inaugural class, if I remember correctly.
Yes, that's true.
Now, CJ, let's start from the very beginning of your career. I'm always curious to learn how this all got started. A lot of guys say it was a family thing. Some guys say they were a big fan and just wanted to get involved in it. So,
well, I don't know. You don't want to start all the way back to the beginning. It's pretty rough.
Well, that always adds some
We've
color.
had some good interviews.
Yeah.
Listen, it's going to get plenty rough when we talk to you about Audie Schwartz here in a little bit, but let's, if we can, how did it all get started for you?
Well, I don't know. We was always kind of mechanical. I'd get on the school bus at home and ride down the road there and get off at the old dirty garage. That's where I'd stay, and then I'd walk home after school. But I just was always mechanical. I mean, when I was 10 or 11 years old, I stayed in a garage all the time. And you know, I had become quite a reputation for being, you know, a mechanic. Mm-hmm. And I think we built a Ford tractor every day, overhauled the engine in one. And, I was respected pretty well at that age.
How old was that?
Oh, I was probably 10 or 11.
And you were rebuilding John Deere tractors?
No, Ford tractors.
Oh, okay. Well, because the John Deere doesn't break down.
Deere's to wear out.
My dad's going to love hearing that. He always told me nothing runs like a Deere, Dan.
Yeah.
So the transition to being into dirt racing, were you a dirt fan, or was it always just kind of, well, I'm good with my hands, so let's start building competitive vehicles?
You know, I think I was a drag racer at heart. Loved it. And I had run a service station for about 8 years when I come up here. I worked in a factory. Then I got in a service station, and I run that thing by myself. I opened at 6 in the morning and closed at 11 at night, 7 days a week. And sometimes I'd meet myself going to work, coming up. And, of course, that got old pretty quick, but I've done that, and then we started drag racing. Then we did that the first year that I've done that. Then we went into a new, larger, really super service station.
Yeah.
And I done pretty well in that, and started drag racing. Then I'd done that about 8 years in that station, and then I decided I would come out here in the country and build me, you know, I bought 5 acres here and built me a house, and then I built a shop and started buying equipment and, you know, doing machine work. But before I started buying machine work, I went and helped Bob Gooden. I worked for him for a while. Then I went to M&M Automotive and, just really picked up on a lot of stuff. I was very meticulous and had an open mind about stuff.
You mentioned the meticulous part. Is that something you feel is a trait that an engine builder and a chassis builder really needs to make sure and have?
Oh, my God, yes.
Because it comes down to tenths and fractions.
My employees tell me that I'm not particular, I'm ridiculous. But, whether it matters or not, I always say, hey, somebody that knows more may check this someday.
Yeah. Did they tell you that because they're your employee and they're just being nice to you? Or?
Oh, I don't. I don't know. They go along with me. I don't have much trouble. Sometimes they say, well, it's not necessary. I'm supposed to do it. But, I think all in all, it turns out, I know Glidden was very meticulous. I mean, he's very, very meticulous.
Yeah. Now talk to me about engine building. I'm going to try to compare it to me as a semi chef here. I can know that when I cook something, I'm rubbing a steak on some grill and putting some marks on it. I know when I put it on the plate, it's going to be a delicious steak. Do you have an idea when you finish an engine that this one's going to be better than one you built 2 engines ago? Or
well,
can you just tell when you build a great engine?
Well, if you get in there and do it 7 times better than good, and you're going to get out of it what you put in it, we think. If you want to lean on it a little bit more, you'll expect a little more out of it, and you'll maybe look for failure earlier. And we try to be pretty conservative with stuff on the engines.
Yeah. A lot of the guys today in NASCAR, I hear them talking about, dialing the engine in. They've got so much electronic in it that they can add a couple of horsepower to save the engine at a place like Texas. Remove a couple of horsepower to save it at a place like Texas that's historically hard on it. Is that kind of what you're talking about there?
Well, we don't do it on most of the engines. We do the LS motors. We do that electronically. But the other engines, if we want to do the mild engines, the the main thing we'll do is maybe take a little compression out and a little camshaft out, and just, where they don't lean on them as hard.
Yeah. Now, eventually, after you've been building engines for a while, I'm seeing here in my notes that Lee Ackerman provided to me, you started building chassis. So what made you switch from being just engines to adding chassis to it?
Well, we were doing drag racing stuff, and we were doing mostly super stocks and stock engines, where you had to be everything had to be exactly right. You had to have the right CCs in the head, the right deck clearance. Everything had to be to bring this motor in to blueprinted specs. Of course, we was allowed to balance them and all that stuff. And our motors, I know about every one of them helped national records, and that word spread pretty quick. So we was really into the drag racing engine business. Then they come along and they put factors on there, like if the national record was 11 seconds, and you had to build a good engine to turn 11 seconds. So then they would put a factor on it, or say, 11 and a half seconds. Well, people didn't have to have a very good engine at that time. And then they went into this ET racing. Doesn't matter what you got for an engine. So that really put a hammer on us here. But in the meantime, I started doing machine work and stuff for Carl Kinzer. And boom, man, I'm doing sprint car stuff for everybody. And, out there, the Knoxville National, I was reading on somebody's shirt, the people that we'd had engines that we was affiliated with. Many, many times we'd won the Knoxville Nationals in those sprint cars.
Yeah.
And then we got into building stock car engines. Hell, we'd build a guy a good engine. He'd go out and set a new track record. If the track was heavy, he would run good, but when he gets slick, he'd go straight to the back. And, at that time, they were, Bob Kaziski could remember this, but they were squat. They were trying to get the cars to squat in the back. And I said, well, I think that's wrong. I think it needs to push the wheels down, the body up. And I tried to get Boyce. He was a chassis builder then, and a couple more people was building chassis to do it. And, you're crazy. You're just an engine builder. You're crazier than hell. So we got off, and the first car we built was Tom Helfrich's. And this wasn't production stuff. This is just that we were building and trying because we'd run the motors. And we got Chrysler Springs, and we rolled them around where the Vector would be up on them. Damn, the little car run good. And I don't remember, we'd done that for 3 or 4 years, and them cars run good. Of course, as soon as our first year we started building cars, we was just awesome, just awesome. The timing was right and everything. Then we went, we had bigger cars then, had bigger spoilers and everything. Then they went to the little cars, and I really thought our stuff was going to be good, but, the high Vector hurt the car going in the corner. So we come back and we built a 4-bar car. Took off with Purvis, and Chuck Boggs was driving for me. We'd come here and, just those cars. We never, ever got the 4-bar finished. They just went out and started winning races, and they're still running and still winning races 30 years later, and the 4-bar still is not finished. Mm-hmm. So there's stuff left to do on that.
Now, after you'd built some chassis for a few years, looks like you decided to sit down and really lose your mind and decided to race these cars.
Well, it got to where, and that's probably the best thing I ever done, but when I got in the car, I was 43 years old. And I had run a few laps at the speedrome up here with a real good car, and hell, I couldn't win a race there. So I kind of quit. Then I had a guy that worked for me, and he had took one of my cars, got a real good driver input in it. Well, they went down to Corbin, Kentucky, and they could run second down there. And this guy go to Knoxville, Tennessee on Saturday night and come to Corbin, Kentucky on pavement. He would go to Knoxville, Tennessee and win on dirt. Come to Corbin, Kentucky and not change tires. Run his dirt tires. Well, my guys went down there 2 or 3 weeks. And the guy's out running was a real good friend of mine. In fact, he had one of our cars. And I said, he might outrun me, but I'm going to make him get off them dirt cars. So I had made a few laps out here at the speedrome, it's just a real little tight racetrack, and, you gotta, things just happen quick on it. And so I started going down there, and I started winning there. Just think maybe the first time I went there I did. But, I knew a lot about cars. I just knew the physics of it, I guess, and we knew what it took. So, we just started running good. Well, when I got to this racetrack, they were running high 14s, and before the end of that year, we was down in the 1230s, and this guy that was really hot, he's still winning at Knoxville on Saturday night, but he'd have to change tires on Sunday. We were big buddies, and, we shared information and everything. And I know probably about the last time we run down there, he went out and set a new track record at like a 12:36. And I'm sitting there on the fence, aggravating him and not having, I never expected much out of myself. I hadn't drove very much. And, hell, I can't lose. I'm just a beginner. How can you lose?
Yeah.
So I'm aggravating him. I punched him. I said, okay, you had this Don Cox. God, everybody knew him and loved him. I said, all right, you've held that damn track record long enough. And I went out and took it to 12:32. And I don't think that they could even run close to that record now. Well, then we started going around and running on pavement. They'd have outlaw races, run what you brung. And that's the very same year that I, started driving. And I just won. Every time we'd go to a race, we'd have the big heroes there. We'd set a new track record and outrun them. Mm-hmm. That started us pretty good, and it really helped in the engine business, too.
With you being in the car, did that help the engine business because you were able to get the driver's aspect of what these engines and chassis were doing?
You cannot believe what driving a race car has done. You can sit up when you talk to a driver, you know what he's talking about.
Yeah. And
now most of the time they're full of crap. Things don't happen. I was talking to Dan Sleeper today. And of course me, I said, you just got your head mixed up. You just don't know. You need to sit in that seat and don't get out of it and don't think about anything else. So I'm a little rough on them, but love them. I love them too.
Hey, CJ, I was talking to Les Duhlman on a story a few years ago, and he said that you had a saying you said when drivers started tinkering with the cars too much, you told them to go get a hot dog. Is that true?
That is true.
I thought that was your saying.
It got so bad, Billy Moyer had him a hot dogger sitting on the back of his truck. One of them things that electrocuted him. Well, people do that, and that is so true today. Let me tell you something about racers. They don't know about their car. They think they know. And I'm telling you, I'm saying a big word here. They don't know about their car. They just know what this other guy does.
Yeah.
They don't think for themselves. They think they let the other guy think for them, and they're just all damn box, and there they are. But man, and it's the damn racing's wide open, and people don't know that.
That had to really aggravate you, though, that you brought them this car, a proven car, by the way, and they got to go and tinker with it.
Well, I did have them a real good car. No, back at first, they didn't tinker with them very much. I'd say, you touch a car, and I'm going to mash your fingers.
Maybe that's why they didn't tinker.
Did that come with like a bumper sticker or whatever? When you sold them the chassis, there was like a sticker when they sat down in the cockpit?
Well, I'm up here, and Jeff Purvis had one of her cars. And, of course, as soon as he got it, he started running real good. Then they went to the pier, and they wasn't running worth a damn. And they're up here, and they're complaining about this. And I said, you put the damn thing back like it was. And instead of working on a car, go to the damn hot dog stand. And I'm telling you, 6 months later, one of them told me, one of the crew members, he said, we was all so damn mad we could have quit you or killed you. But he said, that is so true. Well, as soon as they left here, I believe that's the time that Jeff won like 24 races in a row.
Wow.
There's something there. But, it sunk in. They listened.
Well, we're going to take a trip to the hot dog stand. We're going to take a quick break. We'll be right back. This is the Front Stretch. The Legends of the Dirt Series, brought to you by Kaziski Auto Parts, rolls on next on ESPN Radio.
We have all been there before. Broken car part in your hand and some snot-nosed punk behind the counter has no idea what he is talking about, but he guarantees that this part will fix your car. You pay an arm and a leg for the replacement, get it home, and sure enough, it doesn't fit your car. Now, learn from your mistake and give an experienced salesperson at Kosiski Auto Parts a call today at 402-731-4592. Kosiski Auto Parts will get you back on the road with your arms and legs still attached.
Are you ready for fast-paced, adrenaline-pumping, wheel-to-wheel racing right here in the Metro? Get to Joe's Karting in Council Bluffs and see what it's like to race real go-karts. Joe's Karting knows it's no fun to race go-karts at 10 miles per hour, so they ripped the governors out, and now the only restriction is how good you are at racing. It's full-throttle, white-knuckle racing every day of the week. Head over to joeskarting.com for hours, prices, and specials, or give Buddy a call today and set up your group races at 712-256-5278.
Get ready for the victory lap as we make our way into Turn 4 on the front stretch. Presented by Joe's Karting. Online at joeskarting.com.
Heading into turn number 4, just about ready to wrap this up. The front stretch brought to you by Joe's Karting in Council Bluffs. We are continuing the Legends of the Dirt series. If you've missed any of the Legends of the Dirt series, people like Charlie Schwartz, Steve Francis, Kurt Hansen, Roger Rager, Ray Gus Jr., go back to the Joe's Karting YouTube page, and you can find all of our shows posted online. Today we are talking with CJ Rayburn, very noted dirt late model chassis builder, engine builder, and a man who helped increase hot dog sales, as we learned in the last break. Did you ever go to Martinsville Speedway, who's known for their hot dogs, and encourage any drivers down there to go get a hot dog?
No, I don't think so.
I didn't know if maybe, because that'd be a worthy one to go. Go get a hot dog at Martinsville? Okay, that's fine. I'll go do that for you. CJ, I wanted to ask you, a couple of weeks ago we were interviewing Charlie Schwartz. He helped kick off the Legends of the Dirt series, and he told a really good story about the only time he's ever seen his son, Audie Mad, was the day that you and Charlie, you guys didn't get together, but there was a miscommunication as far as who wrecked who. There was a third car involved. They ended up wrecking somebody, and in the end, there was 2 cars destroyed, and Audie was trying to help you pull your helmet off.
Well, I think that's what happened, and I didn't know what happened. All I know was Charlie just started bumping me and rubbing me and all this stuff, and hell, I just started rubbing him back. But I always had a lot of, I love them guys. That Audie is just, my God, he's just a tremendous guy. And got over there, and hell, they run me up the fence, and him and Audie come over there and started. They was in there trying to get my helmet off. Well, hell, I just sat in the car, maybe unbuckle my seatbelts or something, and when they'd run their hands in there, I don't know, I just got a hold of them, and seemed like I had more strength than Superman. But I still didn't know what was going on, but I guess, and I don't know why Audie didn't see this, but Paul Weisstretcher had run into the back of Charlie, and Charlie thought it was me. And then after all that was over, Paul was over laughing at me because he'd always done. He watched
the whole thing. He watched it all unfold.
Oh, yeah, yeah. And I don't know why Audie. He just evidently didn't notice that. But hell, now Charlie starts bumping me and rubbing me, and I said, "What the hell's the matter with you?" And of course, I'd rub him back and everything. I guess it's.
Hey, CJ, Charlie was the driver of your house car in 1980, and you guys had a phenomenal year. In fact, you won the Nebraska Late Model Nationals, which was a huge race out here. How did you guys get along? I know Charlie can be opinionated, so. Well,
I never had a bit of problems with him. I helped him all I could, and which I furnished cars and motors and everything for him. I was supposed to, and what their deal was, I got so much money off top, I always turned around and give that back to him so he could race. Mm-hmm. Furnished him truck and everything. Yeah. And then at the end of that year, I just didn't want to race anymore, So, and I wished I'd stayed on, but I thought I was finished racing. I've done this, and we've won everything. And my plate was filled, so I didn't want anything else. And then Charlie went to Ray Callahan and made Callahan work. You know, he put cars together for me and done a real good job. And when Charlie went with him, they just set the world on fire. And Charlie was probably as good a race car driver as ever set down the car.
Now, did you ever tell Charlie to go get a hot dog?
You know, really didn't have too much.
Yeah.
He would just say, "Hey, let me," and I swear I don't know how this ever worked, but just let me do this. He'd always do some kind of crazy deal.
I can't imagine.
He had a crazy deal. And I'm telling you, he would put right rear in that. He'd put so much right rear in that car. And the way he would test it, when the car was sitting there, he'd go take his hands and pick the right front wheel up off the ground. That is a true story, and Charlie would tell you the same thing. And I guess when all else failed, you know, he'd put that crazy setup on there. And he said, "Just let me try it over here." He said, "Let me do it, I'll win the race." I believe it's probably about the words he said. And he went faster at Eldor than anybody heard of that year. And I know Larry Moore was somewhere racing, and he called me. He says, "What's a crazy setup that Charlie's running?" And I told him, you know, all I knew about it. And I said, "Just call Charlie and just, you know, he'll tell you." And I don't know whether Larry run it. Well, I think Larry put it on there and won his race. But I study physics. I kind of got an idea how it works, but I haven't tried it yet. You know, you learn so much. I mean, you know, it's just physics. It's just common sense. A race car is. Huh. And we got kind of you know, the people who's running soft springs on the right front and tie-down shock, I guess, on the right front, and a compression shock on the left rear. And I'd run 4 or 5 races last year. And of course, I went just like everybody else did. And I went back and I went conventional. The only thing that wasn't conventional is I had a little bit more rebound on my right front than conventional was. And I had a whole lot more compression in the left rear than conventional. My God, did I have the nicest race car I ever sat in.
We're talking with CJ Rayburn. It's a part of the Legends of the Dirt series presented by Kaziski Auto Parts, 51st and I Street in Omaha, and online at Kaziski.com. CJ, I'm looking at the stats. Lee put together a kind of a little paragraph of some of what your chassis have done over the year. That's got to be a huge sense of pride for you to put blood, sweat, and tears in a chassis and then go and watch it win. It's some of the biggest tracks and some of the biggest races.
Oh, it's just a pleasure to... You know, I love to drive a race car, but when I'm driving a car, I'm developing something. I love to develop something and go up in the stands or go to a hot dog stand, find somebody buying a hot dog, put it in the race car and watch them win. And, you know, I've almost done that. And I like to go, you know, I love to watch them race. When I know they got everything like it should be, they're usually going to run good if their head's right. And this new deal we're on now, some of the new stuff in the back we've done with a lot of success. And I haven't went back to all the old stuff yet, but I'm going to. There is a possibility that I go to Florida and drive. Now, I can hot lap, I can qualify, I can run a heat race. I can run a consi, and I can go sit in the stands and watch a good race. So what else do you want at a race?
There you go.
You can pretty much do it all and just have a good time doing it.
Yeah, you know, if you got, and then, you know, another thing, too, no matter how good my car is, I ain't going to win no race. You know, hell, I'm 74 years old, and I would like to. I got tired in the car one time last year, and some reason my far suit had shrunk up.
Huh.
And
I've heard of that happening every once in a while. It's
yeah.
I think it's something they put in those fire suits when they sit for long enough.
Yeah.
Maybe it's all the trips to the hot dog stand. Who knows?
That's the only time that I wore that. I wore some as little bigger. So, but you know, there's no hard work driving a race car to start with. You get mentally tired, and then that makes you physically tired.
Yeah.
But there's nothing hard about driving one. You know, you get all excited and hold your breath.
Well, don't tell them the drivers that, because they've spent a career talking about how hard it is to drive these things.
Oh, yeah. Well, I've seen good drivers come out wringing wet with sweat, and you see a lot of them come out, don't even have a break of sweat. So I guess some people try harder than others.
CJ, when you've had tried, true, tested, proven chassis and engines like you've had, have you ever watched another driver that you liked and you respected, and they were just struggling with the equipment they had, and you said, why don't you come race my stuff, and let's get you some big wins under your belt. Maybe let's win a national championship. Was that ever the case?
Absolutely. Count them. I'm not going to count them for you.
I was going to say, I was hoping you were going to count them.
I'm not going to.
Let's just say they're count.
I'm not going to call their name, but you can.
Yeah.
You count them. Yeah, you go do that, and you give somebody something free, and then they have no respect for it. Then they'll come along and say, okay, here, John, man, you've done a good job in that. You're really a good driver. And they'll go out, and whoever's running the closest to them, or that'll be the car, or whoever's winning, that'll be the car that they want to get. I can go back and count numerous drivers right today that run their stuff, and you can think about this if you're familiar with it, that run so good in their cars, and they get out of it and get in a damn 4-bar car, and they struggle to win a race. And swear up and down to themselves that they're running better.
Did you ever have, I'm trying to word my next question as the best I can. I'm kind of struggling, so I apologize. Was there ever, what kind of driver tended to drive your cars and your chassis? Was there a theme? Did you tend to attract the aggressive driver, the patient driver, the consistent driver?
You know, I kind of, the people that I did, the people I could help the most. Because they would, a person that needs the most help is going to move up the most places in a race, whether it goes from the middle to the front, or from the back to the middle, or to the back, up towards the front. That's one that's going to pick up most places.
CJ Rayburn, our Legends of the Dirt Series interview for today. CJ, it's been a true honor. Continue what you're doing. And we'll end with your slogan. Don't go away, folks. We ain't done yet. CJ.
Yeah.
Appreciate your time, sir.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Thanks,
have a good
CJ.
One. Okay. All right.
Bye-bye. CJ Rayburn, who's, I think...
he's a legend.
We could put him in the category of molasses, because he's a very slow, deliberate talker. Reminded me a lot of Sammy Swindell, But if you took the time and listened to what he was saying, he told you a lot in those words.
He really did. And, you think about the knowledge of people, especially when they came from his generation, and it's phenomenal. His cars were just impossible to beat at times.
Lee Ackerman continues to prop me up with the information. Lee, I always do appreciate your bios you send me, so I can at least sound somewhat intelligent when asking these guys questions. That was
I always enjoy talking to these guys.
That was CJ Rayburn. We'll be back next weekend to talk to Mark Noble, then Willie Kraft, and then we wrap it all up with Playland Speedway Show 1, and then the next weekend, Show number 2, the Legends of the Dirt Series. Can you believe it? It's almost over. We'll be back next weekend to do it all again. This is The Front Stretch, presented by Joe's Karting on AM 590, Omaha's ESPN Radio.
Max I. Walker has been providing great service to the Omaha area for nearly 100 years. With 23 convenient locations, it's easy to find a Max I. Walker near you. From dry cleaning to laundry to uniform rentals, Max I. Walker is here to make sure you look your best. Max I. Walker has been a proud supporter of local dirt track racing since 1974. From Sunset Speedway to Adams County Speedway and legends of the dirt like Dave Chase, Glenn Roby, Ron Tilley, and so many more. Give Max I. Walker a call today or head to maxiwalker.com.
Are you ready for fast-paced, adrenaline-pumping, wheel-to-wheel racing right here in the Metro? Get to Joe's Karting in Council Bluffs and see what it's like to race real go-karts. Joe's Karting knows it's no fun to race go-karts at 10 miles per hour, so they ripped the governors out, and now the only restriction is how good you are at racing. It's full-throttle, white-knuckle racing every day of the week. Head over to joeskarting.com for hours, prices, and specials, or give Buddy a call today and set up your group races at 712-256-5278.